to be here with each and every one of you, but I'm truly honored to have my South Carolina homeboy back here in South Carolina, Jamie Harrison. And we're truly excited to have the governor of California here. I'm gonna say this, it is so exciting to be in a room full of Democrats. Being the only Democrat legislator in York County, it is exciting. At this time, let me welcome Jamie Harrison and Governor Newsom.
I liked it. I liked it. A little West Coast.
My walk-on is Michael Jackson, the Jacksons, Can You Feel It?
Old school, Jamie. I appreciate that. No, I respect that.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
Oh, that ages you, brother.
Oh, I know it does. You all know I just turned 50 on February 5th, so...
Congratulations.
I'm now eligible to get, I'm waiting for my AARP card because I'm waiting to get those discounts.
I'm not even going to go there because to be as young as you, I remember when.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
You know, in addition to this amazing event, we are also doing a special live edition of my podcast. So we are double tasking here of At Our Table. And folks, you know, some books are written to explain power. Others are written to explain a person. Young Man in a Hurry is not just a political memoir. This is about a son trying to understand his mother's strength. It's about a son discovering pieces of his father that he didn't fully know. This book is about a leader who is reflecting on the mistakes that have shaped him, and a public figure who is wrestling with ambition in a world that often rewards speed more than wisdom. Governor Gavin Newsom, I want to say welcome back to South Carolina.
I appreciate it. It's good to be back. It's good to be back. That was good, Jamie. I appreciate it. Well done.
Well, Governor, I appreciate all the things that you are doing. Because, you know, there's a saying that in our darkest nights, we see our brightest stars. And I have to say, Governor, you have been, in these very dark nights that we are living in, you have been one of our bright stars in this Democratic Party. So thank you.
Thank you. Nice. Thank you.
And for those of you at home, welcome to At Our Table. Welcome to South Carolina. I wish we had some shrimp and grits that we could give to you, but that just means you got to come back here again and spend some money while you're here. Governor, the title of your book is, and we got plenty of them here,
Look at that.
Young Man in a Hurry. Now, when you look back at that young man, why was he in a hurry?
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, by the way. Everybody, it's wonderful to be here with you. And this book, actually, this is very exciting for me because tomorrow, officially, the book goes on sale. And in the spirit of Jamie's introduction, this is not a book I think you would expect me to write or someone that's currently in elected office. I tried to do something a little bit different because I think you introduced it quite well, to reflect on, not just any, alleged or, promoted triumphs, but failures, setbacks, the anxieties, my insecurities, my doubts, my fears, the things that shaped me, my parents, and also that shaped me today and the person I'm trying to become. And I think really that young man in the hurry is, trying to be a better man now. Trying to be a good father, a good husband. I'm trying to learn from the mistakes of the past. I'm trying to absorb the moment we're living in, but through the lens now of a deeper understanding relationship to the two people that shaped me disproportionately that are no longer here. I had a 19-year-old mom who's pregnant at 19. She was divorced with 2 kids a few years later. I never understood why my parents got divorced until I started writing the book and started to discover things about my parents they never shared with me. I have a father that survived just to see his son get elected governor of California and passed away a few weeks later. He was not expected to make it that long. And so much of my current trajectory was almost predetermined in ways that I never fully understood until I went through a process of discovery. Young Man in a Hurry, a memoir of discovery. As I went back and started to absorb and understand their motivations, their triumphs, their travails, and how they shaped me today.
So when you think about the book and the process that you went through trying to discover yourself, did you figure out whether you were running towards something or away from something?
I think always towards something. I think it was Oscar Wilde said, the first, obligation of life is to, have a pose. And the second, no one's ever really figured out. And I'm in that second phase. I'm trying to figure it out. But I assumed a pose. Yeah. I put a mask on. And in many ways, my face started to grow in it. I don't want to accuse me of being completely inauthentic, but at times I was trying to be like other people. And with that came anxiety, imposter syndrome, not feeling worthy. But I was also chasing this. I was chasing a father that had left. He was still part of my life, but not deeply present growing up. And I was also trying to chase a relationship with my mom, who was working 2-3 jobs, literally, until the day of her death, who was just hustling, trying to make ends meet, came from no wealth. And again, she's a kid raising 2 kids. And I imagine there are people out here that have experienced the same thing. But she was also raising a kid that was struggling, not my sister, but me, who couldn't even read and write, that was struggling to learn, that was dropping out of school, faking being sick every day. And I never understood what she was going through until I started to reflect on the experiences as a parent myself, and I got deeper into the struggles that she had that, frankly, that young man in a hurry never paid enough attention to. And I'm self-critical in that respect. I talked, Jamie and I were talking a moment ago, and there's a lot of stories in this book, and perhaps the most painful one is being there for my mom when she took her last breath. And, Jamie, you were very honest with me about a similar experience with your grandfather. And I think this sums up, and this, again, is not the kind of book you'd write in politics to promote yourself. But I'll never forget, I got a phone call from my mother, just a voice message. She said, "Hi, it's your mom. And my last day will be next Thursday. If you're interested, you may want to drop by." And so I pick up this voicemail, and I literally did what any good son with a sister would do. I called my sister. I said, "Well, what's going on?" And my sister said, "You've been too busy to know, but you better figure it out." And my mother had committed to an assisted suicide, which was illegal at the time. And I appreciate people of faith and different opinions. I deeply respect that. but I hope you also respect the journey she was on. Her breast cancer metastasized. She was in such deep pain. Every day was a struggle. It was excruciating. And she found a brave doctor who was good enough and willing enough to be there to support her through this transition. And it was that week, you know, I started to take the mask off. Started to reflect on, you know, who am I becoming? You know, what kind of son have I been? It was always about what kind of mom. Mom need this, I need this. It was a one-way thing. And I was there with her as she took that last breath. And I describe it in the book. And, you know, I don't want to get too maudlin and too in the details except to say it was the worst experience anyone can have. There was nothing romantic about it. You know, it wasn't like a movie where, you know, and the music and the credits. It was a gasp. It was the horror, the exhale, inhale. But it was also, as I wrote this book, it became cathartic because I started to realize that hand.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
My hand. That breath is my breath. And I am because she was. And I never loved her more. And I just wish I was around to tell her that. And so, you know, the book expresses that as well. And it allows me to live more in the moment today with my kids and those precious moments with our loved ones.
Well, Governor, I told you in the back, I sort of experienced a similar thing. I was working on the Capitol Hill at the time. My grandfather was here in South Carolina. He had diabetes and had complications, and all of a sudden his health slipped. And so I remember talking with Congressman Clyburn and saying, you know, my grandfather's really sick. I think I need to go back to Orangeburg. And he said, go. And I went there, and he was in the hospital. And I got there, I flew in that afternoon, and he was there, and I held his hand, and he took his last breath. Yeah. And the one thing I want you to know is, and it's something that lives with me every single day, and I know it lives with you. She took her last breath and she held your hand, and it's hard, but it's one of the greatest expressions of love.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, I love that. That's right.
And so it is a hard memory because it's one that is in my head every single day. And there are moments in which I'm driving, or there are moments when I'm reading, there are moments I'm playing with my kids, and the memory hits me, and I can't help but start crying. Yeah, yeah. I can't help but start tearing up. But then I remember the love. And the one thing in reading this book about your mom, she loved you.
God bless.
Yes, she loved you, and it's just powerful. There's this one story in which you talked about having a tough little league game.
Oh gosh.
And your mom, after the game, takes you with a bucket of baseballs. Because she was a heck of an athlete as well.
She was a great athlete. So I'm in Little League, and you know, anyone who plays baseball and as a Little Leaguer, I played right field. And, I don't have to say much more. And I'll never forget. Maurice Bigden, I can't remember exactly. It may have been Maurice. I didn't write the name because I wasn't sure, but I think it was Maurice Bigden. Big right-hander. I played for Round Table Pizza. Joe Wagner, Little League. Strike one. Strike two. Strike three. Boom. Next at bat. Ball one. Strike 1, 2, 3, out. Third time, I just held the bat. 3 strikes out. I'm crying, I'm devastated. My mom is there. We live near the Little League thing. I came back home and I just said, I'm quitting, I can't do this. And my mom said, let's go. I said, what? She grabbed that ball, those balls, and she went out. The field was empty, and she started pitching to me. And, you know, think about that, man. That was just a lesson in persistence.
Yeah.
And, you know, not only did that persistence pay off? It got me into college on a partial baseball scholarship. And, you know, that's what moms do.
Yes.
Those, you want superpowers. That's moms. That, you know, I mean, and how blessed am I? I mean, that's the grit. Just this, you know, and it's your point, just fierce. But, you know, it was hard. You know, I was saying, you know, when you've got learning disability, where you quite literally, I mean, and, you know, I joke about I'm in the wrong profession today because I can't read a speech. You know, you'll never see me, you've never seen me go up in the Democrat, looking down, looking up a speech, because the words I can't do it.
And for those of you, in the book, the governor talks about learning that he has I can't even say it.
Well, Jamie, we could discuss maybe
Dyslexia.
Yours.
I know.
You know.
Well, you know,
it's okay.
I do have this Southern tongue, and if you grew up in my house, my grandma would mess up a word in a heartbeat, and my grandfather would say, "Look at her. She thinks she's so sophisticated and can't even say it." Well, I inherited every bit of that. Well, you talk about dyslexia.
Yeah, no, I found all this paperwork. I got home one day and saw the file open. I was bored and opened this stuff up, and it was all this stuff observing me. And it was all there. I mean, just files and files and files. Still have them over the years of these classes. I never knew why. I just assumed everyone was doing Monday, Tuesday, or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday after school stuff, and a little bit of summer. And it was describing how the words were backwards, had a lisp back in the day. That was more easily solved, but the spelling has never been solved. If you want me to dedicate something in the book, just good luck trying to read my writing. I mean, and you know, and it's not something you get rid of. It's just something you work around. I don't know if you overcome it, but you work around it. And it turned out I am literally sitting here because of it. It's a gift because it forces you to develop other skills. And it forces you to have some empathy, to feel like you have to be more collaborative. You know, it sensitizes you to the world around. You feel a room. You absorb more emotionally. I mean that, because by definition, you know, reading a speech, by definition, you have to read a room. And those feelings present themselves positively sometimes and negatively. I mean, it could create more anxiety, more stress, but also, you know, after time, more reps, right? You got to fail forward fast. Secret of all success is moving from failure to failure with enthusiasm. And this notion of iteration. And that's been a gift, and I've been willing. I mean, the one thing that marks so much of what I do talk about in political terms is a willingness to take risks consistently. I mean, it's reflected in my social media today. That's not normal, what we're doing. The same, you know. I know, forgive me, some of you may not like it. Wash his mouth out with soap. But thank you. I mean, yeah, we can maybe get into that if you want a little bit more. Yeah. That's right.
Few more things about the book, and then we'll get into some current.
Okay, we are going to get into all that.
Yeah, I don't want your publishers to be like, that Jamie didn't
even bring up the damn book.
Bring up the damn book.
I want to talk about ice, which we'll talk about.
But in the book, you said that you write about learning about things about your parents that you did not fully understand growing up. Yeah. What surprised you the most?
Well, my mom, how she grew up. She didn't speak for almost 5 years. I thought, okay, that can't be true. I talked to her two sisters. It was true. She was a little gibberish, a little language she used. She was so quiet. Her father, my grandfather, had a real drinking problem. And there's a scene where he took his two twin daughters, my mom and her sister, and put a gun to their head at the fireplace. And my grandmother walked in, calmed him down, put him right to bed. He passed out. He came back from Corregidor. He was He marched, we talk a lot about the Bataan Death March, but the Corregidor March, and was a prisoner of war for years and years. I didn't know all this. Memoir of Discovery. I learned about Arthur Menzies. He took his own life, committed suicide. I didn't know all those stories. I heard him secondhand, read something in the newspaper, was vaguely familiar with it. I didn't know his struggles. And as a consequence, it shaped my understanding and my empathy for my mom that I never fully absorbed. She called the house a house of secrets. No one ever talked about any of this. I didn't know why my parents, why they got divorced. I found out from an oral history my father did that no one knew about. Someone found it when I was trying to learn more about him. A friend said, "Didn't you ever hear the oral history of your dad?" He did a tape recording with the Bancroft Library at Berkeley, and he talks about why he left us. Like, okay. And I'm listening to this, and turns out he ran for county supervisor in San Francisco, lost. Then turned around and ran for state senate and lost. And in the interview said, I was broke, lost 2 races, and broken. And I panicked, and I just had to get the hell out of there. And moved up towards Lake Tahoe, Truckee region, where he became an attorney. And it explains why my mother, Jamie,
Hated politics.
And she told me I never understood it. Up until her last days, she said, I don't want you to get in politics. And I never understood it. Was I not good at it? And it never fully shaped me to then understand that's the damn origin story, so much of it. Again, that's the gift of doing something like this. I hope it's a gift you can give yourself. All of you. You all have stories to tell, things to discover that understand, that can motivate you also, that can also, give you grace. Let things go. We're just so anxious, so stressed, just always trying to compare ourselves, that thief to all happiness, right? Comparison. And once you start to understand, then you can be understood. And that's the mask I'm starting to take off. And I feel reflected in that social media, reflected in this memoir and my understanding of my past a little bit more and my present, just letting it go, just be myself. It's messy. A lot of you may not have shown up if you had actually read it. But it's me. It's me, and that's all I can be.
You think about, yes. You think about the coin that you had. It's 2 sides of a coin, right? On one side, your mom hated politics. On the other side, your dad was infatuated with politics. And when you first got your first position, he was the person who actually swore you in, right? County supervisors for a role that he lost.
Well, they swore me in for a different reason.
Oh.
In the book, I briefly described, I am here because of my parents, but I'm also here in political terms because of one extraordinary human being.
Willie Brown.
Willie Brown. And for those that don't know Willie Brown, you wouldn't know Kamala Harris without Willie Brown. Kamala and I both got elected the same day. She was district attorney. I was mayor. She was there, my mayor's swearing in. We walked literally across the street, swore in as district attorney. The one thing we both had in common was Willie Brown. A friend, a supporter, a mentor, a legend in California politics. Let me just briefly describe you. He was Speaker of the Assembly in the state of California. Dominant voice. They could not get rid of him. Republicans took back control, and he made a deal with the Republicans to stay Speaker. They couldn't even get rid of him. That's who Willie Brown is. It's the old San Francisco mayor in me. I can quote Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead, who said, you don't want to be the best of the best. You want to be the only one that does what you do. That's Willie Brown. Sort of redefined the art. They finally got rid of him because they went to the ballot and installed term limits. And so he was without a job, and then he ran for mayor of San Francisco. And I was just one of those kids going, this guy's amazing. And I was out there running around, supporting him in precincts, et cetera. And as a consequence of that, I had the privilege of getting appointed by Willie Brown. He tapped me on the shoulder. That young man in the hurry, running small businesses, restaurants, and hotels. That was, we can, I don't know if we have time to talk about, but I'm an entrepreneur. Came right out of college. That's the dyslexia in me. It's just driving an entrepreneurial mindset, creativity, trying to problem solve, and open a little restaurant, hotel right out of college. And part-time employee. Pat Kelly grew it to about 1,000 employees, 20 businesses. Saying that not to impress anyone, but press upon you my passion for entrepreneurialism. And it was identified favorably by Willie. And he, just very briefly, the day I was supposed to be sworn in, I went on a Fox News affiliate, Mornings on 2, Ross McGowan. And he asked me, the business person, said, what do you think of this new San Francisco 49ers stadium proposal by Mayor Willie Brown? And I answered honestly. I said, well, this is the day I'm supposed to get sworn in. Willie Brown's most important priority, getting this bond to keep the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. And his soon-to-be appointee says, well, Ross, as a small business person, I think it's important to read business plans. And currently, there is no business plan attached to the bond. And so right now, I think we need to scrutinize this a little bit more, and so I'll wait and see. I'm some 26-year-old. And so I'm driving back. This is like early cell phones. And I get a call. It's in the book. And then there are some kids in the room. I can't say what I heard. And it was, bottom line, you're asking to see Willie Brown. So I went there. He made me wait for over an hour. And I just remember all these posters of Willie on cover of Time and Newsweek. I'm like, the whole intimidation factor. And he finally gives me in, and I got a schooling of the Willie Brown time.
I bet you did.
And I describe it in detail. I always said, young man, you have not walked one precinct. You have not walked on one door. You have not received one check. You have not earned one vote. Until you do so, you must understand how this works. You are an appointee of mine, and this is among my most important priorities. Anyway, it reads much more eloquently than this. In fact, I walked out of there, I said, I can't do this. I remember I called my dad, I said, I can't do this. I'm just not cracked up for this. And my dad said, you got to do it. And eventually, my dad said, why don't I swear you in? And so he ended up swearing me in that night. The amazing thing, I love this. This is Willie Brown. 2 weeks later, that was one of my first votes. And the vote came. Don't judge me. Read the book. The vote came, and I said, the bond deal, I said, is not a good deal. It's a great deal. For San Francisco. And when a reporter asked Willie Brown, he said, well, why did this new supervisor flip? He said, he did not flip. He was just not acquainted with all of the facts. And so that was my first foray into politics. And those are the lessons, and the integrity or lack thereof of that, right? How you balance those things, how you work through those things, how you become your own person. That's the mask you put on. What's my relationship to him versus the people I serve? Those in power, those that are powerless. Am I representing my mom or am I representing my father? This duality, two different worlds. My father, privileged, doors that are opened. He was on the California Court of Appeals. He was an activist judge, but well-respected judge. Very close to a very wealthy family, the Getty family, which opened doors for me. But the door that was open and shut more often than any others was my mom's, that again, truly shaped perhaps the most formidable part of me.
There was something that you did when you became mayor. You talk about in the book having, she was then leader, Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi invite you to the State of Union address with George W. Bush. And during this address,
No one booed? I'm surprised. What kind of audience are we? See, y'all miss him over Trump.
Who would have ever thought?
I'm just saying.
Who would have ever thought?
Wow. Wow.
That folks would take George W. Bush over Donald Trump. Wow. It's amazing how the world turns, huh? And in that, he talked about, about same-sex marriages and that it was pretty much an abomination, should not happen, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And you then left there feeling, as the mayor of San Francisco, that you needed to do something.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and when you did, when you moved forward with same-sex marriage, even allies urged caution, even members of your family, right? Your dad.
Oh, old Irish Catholic, come on.
Yes. So how do you know when bold becomes reckless and when caution becomes cowardice?
Now we know why he has a podcast. I'll never forget, the Archbishop of San Francisco said the worst mistake he ever made was endorsing my candidacy for mayor, which I didn't know he can do. But it gives you a sense of the flavor, a sort of west side, the west side of San Francisco. That's how I got elected. So the last thing anyone expected was that I was going to start marrying same-sex couples weeks after getting sworn in for office. I'm the youngest mayor in about 100 years. Everybody was giving me advice. Young man, it's always the right time to do the right thing. Just do what you think is right. And there I was at the State of the Union. I was actually not intending to go to the State of the Union. I was invited by Nancy to meet the California congressional delegation as a newly elected mayor, and happened to be the same night the State of the Union. I was going to leave, go back to the hotel room, head back to San Francisco, and Nancy said, you know what, you want to stay? Was doing a meeting with the delegation right before. She said, Paul, her husband, he's not going to go, and I have an extra ticket. And so I said, that's amazing. Took the ticket, sat there, and listened to that speech. It was a hell of a speech. It was a re-election speech for George Bush, and it ended, as Jamie said, focusing on the issue of marriages between a man and a woman, and the president was supporting a constitutional amendment to codify that. All that being said, we'll go back out inside the chambers. You can't have cell phones, and we all have to wait in line to get our cell phones. And there was a couple right behind me, true story, and they were just so proud of the speech. And I'll never forget the way they said it. They were saying, I am so sick of the homosexual agenda. And I looked around, and the way they said homosexual with such contempt. And I wanted to introduce myself. Hi, I'm the mayor of San Francisco. But I didn't do that, didn't have the courage. Instead, I picked up the phone, and as everybody's exiting right, I exited left. And I'll never forget, because I couldn't get back in. And I was outside the Capitol, and I called my chief of staff. I said, we need to do something about this. And I'll tell you, Jamie, not dissimilar to what I felt after what happened in Texas with Greg Abbott. What are we going to do about this? The same thing went through my mind. Do I write an op-ed? Do I express concern, try to win a debate? Or we do something more meaningful? And what happened eventually was we decided just to marry one couple, and we were going to file a lawsuit on the constitutionality. Phyllis Lyon and Del Martin. They've been together 49 years. The manifestation of faith, love, devotion, and constancy, what marriage is all about. And we tried to do it, ironically, in a professional way where it wasn't politicized. Meaning I wasn't involved. It was the county clerk who worked with Jesse Jackson, the Rainbow Coalition. She was a great civil rights leader in her own right, Mabel Tang, and she would do it and conduct it normally. And I was upstairs, and I'll never forget, I gave them a constitution after they came up, after getting married. I said, thank you for making these words real. And we were able to do that, notwithstanding the fact that the Bush administration, the governor at the time, Republican, were all expressing condemnation and indignation when they heard that this was going to happen. And they said they were going to federal court, which is across the street from City Hall. And they were going in at 9 o'clock to get a temporary restraining order to stop this lawlessness of the mayor. And then I realized, wait, I'm the mayor. I can open City Hall up anytime I want. And so we opened City Hall up at like 7:30, 8 in the morning, and we snuck in before the federal courts were open, and we did the first marriage. About 9:30, 9:45, we're waiting, bated breath, what's gonna happen with the federal order? And the judge comes out with an order saying there's no irreparable harm being done. And long story short, there were a few other couples there, friends of Phyllis and Dell, and they're like, well, we've been together 30 years. And we're like, okay. Well, a month goes by, 4,036 couples from 46 states and 6 countries got married in the winter of love in San Francisco. But one thing there wasn't, Jamie, love from the Democratic Party.
Well, I wasn't chair then, so can't blame me.
Those same people were saying it's always the right time to do the right thing. And it was that was a wake-up call for me. Mm-hmm. That was a moment. But I'll tell you, the moments that define that are not the friction there. And eventually, these same leaders all came along a few years later. And I'm grateful for that, and they're remarkable leaders in their own right. But what was so remarkable was how unremarkable that month was. It was your cousin, your aunt, your uncle, your pilot, firefighters, doctors, lawyers. It was Uncle John and his old friend, Bob. And you go back, there's not one image of that that's ever been able to be exploited. They couldn't. And I tried not to get involved. I told you about the politics of this. It was hard. I mean, they were calling for my head. I mean, it was intense. And I'll never forget, I finally, because of all the cheers, you can feel this, but I never felt it because I wasn't part of what was happening in City Hall. And I remember, I'll never forget walking out. And I just wanted to experience for a second. And I walked out, and there was a crowd of people getting married, and there was this little girl, true story, it's in the book. And literally, I'm looking around, and all this energy, and it was beautiful. And then there's this this little girl, and she goes, and she hugs me. And she goes, I look down at her, and she looks up, and she goes, I'll never forget it. She goes, thank you for giving me 2 mommies. And I literally start crying. So embarrassed. I remember I was like, thank you. Ran back into my office, locked the door, and literally just started bawling. What a magical gift to be part of people's lives. And that's the gift of public service. And even if you get one of those in life, that's having made it. And for me, that just shifted everything. These magical moments, human beings, families, love. We all want to be loved. We all need to be loved. And it was one of the most exhilarating and thrilling things that I've ever been associated with, despite the fact that it created friction and backlash. And I'm not naive about that in the frame of your question.
Well, and I want to, so I'm going to bring this into sort of the national moment, because I know these people have been itching to get there too.
I don't have much to say about things nationally. I tend to be a little timid.
And because we're talking about the Democratic Party right now, I do want to go into this, because there's been a debate right now about a national conversation within our party about generational leadership. Now, there's some who are saying, you were a young mayor, and because you were young, it was the reason why you pushed in order to change. There are some that say it's not about age, but it's about mindset. What's your thought on that?
There is a photo that is the photo, we all may have that one thing that you'd risk going back in the house if it's on fire to grab. My one thing is a photo of my dad and Bobby Kennedy, literally right before he was shot. Remember, my dad was running for state senate, and it became a campaign photo, 68. And Bobby Kennedy once said, what the world needs are the qualities of youth, not a time of life, but a state of mind, a quality of imagination. So I think about your question in that frame, not a time of life, a state of mind, a quality of imagination. It wasn't necessarily my time of life, but it was a quality of imagination. I didn't know what I didn't know. Had the beginner's mind. You know, I was talking to someone earlier, the Roger Bannister theory of life. He's the guy who broke the 4-minute mile. He didn't know he could break the 4-minute mile. He didn't know that you couldn't break the 4-minute mile. And the year he broke the 4-minute mile, dozens of people around the globe broke it because they realized it was a limiting belief. So I do believe in the beginner's mind. I do believe in that sort of generational mindset, but I don't think it's exclusive to a time of life from my perspective. But one thing is self-evident. For things to change, we need to change. And that's reflected in the shift in the approach that I've taken to this president and this presidency in this moment that we're living in and living through. And with respect to the Democratic Party, that shift can't come soon enough. And we can talk a little bit more about that.
I'm gonna stay on this for a second because this weekend, Governor, is going to be a special weekend here in South Carolina because the South Carolina Democratic Party, and thanks to the leadership of our amazing chair, she's somewhere out there, Crystal Spain.
Where are you, Crystal?
Where are you, Crystal?
We're with her
Madam
all
Chair,
day today. God
thank
bless.
you. Because of Crystal, Democrats will welcome President Joe Biden back here to South Carolina and give him his flowers and to thank him for his service.
Hear, hear.
Now, in some corners of our party, he has become an easy target, kind of political piñata almost. But I've noticed that you have taken a very different approach. You have publicly praised the president.
Yeah.
Give us a little sense of what your thoughts are.
I describe aspects of the book, and I appreciate not bringing some of them up, where, you know, my father may have been distant when I was younger, but older I got, more engaged you became. And as a divorced dad, he was the yes. You know, when I needed the yes. You know, he didn't want any friction. But I'll never forget the stinging rebuke when I did something, and which I'll live with and pay the price for the rest of my life. He said, you go home with the one that brought you to the dance. Literally used that phrase. I'll never turn my back on Joe Biden. I'll never turn my back. I won't. It's a character thing, man. And Jamie, let me tell you a little story. And I haven't. It just came to me the other day. I'd forgotten about this, and I didn't you start connecting dots when you start reflecting a little bit. The day that Hunter Biden was indicted on some charges, I was with the president in San Francisco. He was at the Fairmont Hotel. We were about to announce, and I was part of a panel, his AI executive order. We had been working, California-led, with the first AI executive order in the nation. We were working closely with the administration on it, and we were braiding and knitting it with what the president was about to announce. He showed up a little bit late and a little distraught, and we didn't realize what was going on until we found out moments before we started the press conference. The president read a statement. Press spray came in. Everybody left. Then we left with the president in the motorcade and got on Marine One to fly to a fundraiser across the Golden Gate Bridge. And I flew with the president across the Golden Gate Bridge, and he was clearly distracted. Understandably so, it's his son. We get into the limo, and he invited me into the limo to drive up for about a 20-minute drive to the event. And he's going on and checking in. And then he starts checking out a little bit. And I don't want to share too much, but I do want to just share the character of a person I love, I admire. And he's looking out the window, and he goes and he says, "Pal, I just tried to be there every day. I came back, as if he's middle of a conversation with himself, but he then shares it with me. On the train every day, talking about, after the kids, the tragedy, after Bo, being there for Hunter, trying to be the best father he can be. I've got 4 kids. I'm trying to be the best father he can be." And you could just see the pain of that moment, the humanity of that moment. And I looked at him, I swear to you, my dad had passed away a couple years prior, and it was my father. And that was an imprint that I'll never forget. And you can't make this up. And I write about my father's love of Yeats. He then quotes Yeats And I'm like, okay. So I will never, ever turn my back on Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, ever, ever.
You know, Governor, in these times in which we see what a bad man is, it's important to celebrate when we see a good one. And Joe Biden, and again, it's just the same way, people tell me, well, Jamie, you're naive, you're just, no. When you see a good and a decent man who tries to do his best, and sometimes you fail when you try to do your best, you still celebrate them and you appreciate them because you know what the flip side of that coin is.
Yeah, well, you also signed 400 bipartisan bills. We also had the lowest unemployment since the 1960s, the lowest black unemployment, lowest unemployment for women, the lowest uninsured rate in the country. We had the fastest growing economy in the Western Hemisphere, and we also had the CHIPS and Science Act, we had the IRA, we had the Infrastructure Bill, we had the SAVE Act, and he also passed more substantive legislation than most presidents have in our lifetime. That's Joe Biden. All those are facts. Look them up. I'm sorry, they're facts.
Thank you. Now, Governor, you have positioned yourself as probably one of the most, if not the most aggressive Democratic pushback to the current 34 convicted count felon in the White House, the chief liar, the liar in chief. Because you talk about his lies and how often he lies. It's a whole dang on page.
You should buy the book just for that one chapter. By the way, there's the tour I took on Air Force One with Donald Trump. Oh, you have to read it just for that. Where he's petting the side of the plane. We go into the presidential bedroom. I'll leave you there. Buy the book. Buy the book. I'm just saying. I ain't being I will not be invited back on that plane anytime soon.
When did the light switch turn on for you that said, you know what, there's a gap here and somebody needs to fill this gap?
I mean, there was a dimmer switch. But if there was a light switch, it was in June of last year. I get a call from the president late at night, it's 10:30 my time, 1:30 or so his time. It's this weird number, this unknown number, but it said Palm Beach. And over and over and over again. I check in with Susie Wiles. I said, she said it is. And I said, well, I'll call him tomorrow, it's late. He goes, no, I think he wants to talk. So I called back, president gets right on the phone. Before I could even say a word without a beat, he goes, hey, Gavin, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think of that nickname, Newscum? It's pretty good, huh? It's pretty original. And I'm like, original? Mr. President, and it's literally in the book. I said, in 8th grade, there was like an 8th grader that used to call me Newscum. It's not original. It's like, and I said, you're like 80. I didn't say that, but, and then he immediately goes, well, what do you think of MAGA? MAGA's pretty good. I'm like, are we seriously having this I literally said, are we seriously having this conversation? He goes, how many hats do you think I sold last month? How many hats? I'm like, how many hats? He said, like 200. I'm like, oh, well, that's amazing, Mr. President. Anyway, went on like this. This was after.
You know, Lindsey Graham probably bought most of them.
No. That's not true. Lindsey Graham bought all the knee pads for Donald Trump. Forgive me.
He also has a lot of flip-flops too, so. Oh, having too much fun here, y'all.
12 hours after that 17-minute conversation, I wake up, my staff calls, said, did you see the Truth Social? And it says, the president says, I read Newsom, the Riot Act. And now we're going to federalize the National Guard in his state. 4,000 National Guard were ultimately federalized in my state, 700 active duty Marines, were sent, not overseas, were sent to the second largest city in the United States. He had militarized the second largest city in the United States of America. Remember, that's where all of this started first. It was literally the line that crossed where I shifted everything, where we shifted our approach, our tonality, our engagement. And it was the line that we now have seen crossed. I said it at the time. We said, this is a preview of things to come. You saw it in DC. You saw it in Chicago. You saw it in Minnesota. You're seeing it in places, including here, all across the United States. This guy is not screwing around. And that was the moment that I felt we needed to put a mirror up to Donald Trump in a different way. I get it. I want to talk about tabletop issues. I want to talk about my 10-point plans. I want to talk about the future and a positive alternative vision and economic vision where everyone feels included and we can address the systemic problems of our time. Yes, we all want to get to that. But right now, we may lose our country. We may not be able to celebrate, this historic project of our founding fathers next year as we know it. The best of Roman Republic, the best of Greek democracy, co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty, the rule of law, not the rule of Don. And I hope it's dawning on everybody. I hope it's dawning. I think it's dawning on everyone. People are starting to understand these lines that are being crossed on a daily basis, an hourly basis. So we decided to put that mirror up. And yes, in all caps. To the absurdity of Trump. Dressing up as the Pope, dressing up as Superman, putting his picture up there on Mount Rushmore, belittling and demeaning people every single day. And when we did that, we also exposed his enablers. We exposed Fox News and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and Jesse Waters and all of those that are complicit on this propaganda network. You saw what happened at Fox. They must have done 60 segments on this. So sick were they that the governor would act so immaturely, really. So ignorant to their own complicity, so situationally unaware. They've allowed this normalization, this invasive species of sorts into our lives. A guy who's going after institutions that have one thing in common, institutions that cultivate individual and independent thinking. I joke about those knee pads. By the way, we sell knee pads. We got new ones just came in. It's on my Patriot site. You can look it up right now. We have new Trump signature series knee pads because the first one sold out. Just like our law firms sold out, just like our universities were selling out, just like corporations are selling out, just like the media has been selling out to Donald Trump and bending a knee. We've got to call this out. We can lose our republic. We will lose our country. We've got to stand up. So that's what was reflected after that call that Trump made to Greg Abbott, where he said he's entitled to five seats because he knows he's going to get shellacked in the midterm elections. He knows he's going to lose in the midterm elections. So what does he do? He does what he always does. He did what he did on January 6th, where he tried to wreck this country like democracy on fire. I was in Fulton County yesterday, who of course called the Secretary of State there, demanding 11,000, 12,000 votes. That's exactly what he did with Greg Abbott. He's trying to rig the election in 2026 before one vote is cast. The difference is the die was cast in my mind. That instead of writing that op-ed to express displeasure with what he's doing in Texas, we decided to write a new constitution in the state of California and fight fire with fire by drawing our own lines and pushing back. And it's just a different approach. I love my party. Jamie, I love our party. But we're so, we kind of get a little consumed with winning arguments while they're consolidating power.
Yes.
These guys are ruthless. They're ruthless. There will not be a fair and free election in the United States of America as we know it unless we win back the House of Representatives this November. He's not screwing around. In Fulton County yesterday, I met with the commissioners there. He's not screwing around. He's trying to nationalize election one day, 2 days later says, oh, it's just in 15 blue states. This SAVE Act and what he's trying to do, very familiar here in South Carolina.
Yes. Yes.
It's not just about ID, it's about registration and who should vote, who can vote. This is happening on our watch in real time in the United States of America 2026. For things to change, we need to change. So my approach changed. That switch came off. It was a bright light, not darkness. It was daylight. Do something different. Call this out. Fight fire with fire. And you know what happens? It's always the case. Also use humor. You know what all fascists and dictators have in common? They don't like being mocked.
No.
And part of it is this mystique. They want us to respond outraged because it suggests they're more powerful than they actually are. Donald Trump is weakness. Weakness masquerading as strength.
Yes.
He's in retreat right now. He's in retreat because of all of you, because the steel spine of the folks in Minnesota, because those of you that have showed up here and all across the country at the No Kings rally, you guys are stepping up and stepping in. You're the freedom fighters. You're the patriots in this country. You're the ones standing up for freedom and free speech. You're the ones that are embracing the flag, not Donald Trump. He's trying to wreck this country. And it's one of the great grifts we've ever seen in human history. And let's call that out. The Trump story, I'm sorry, Jamie, is a corruption story. Billions and billions of dollars of self-enrichment. Why do you think he was so, even by Trump's standard, I had never seen him just so tongue-tied in that Friday press conference after the Supreme Court decision. But I understand it because he was broken because it's not about the policy, it's about the profit. What do the tariffs have in common? Deals with the Trump family, the Witkoff family. You think I'm overstating this? You saw what happened in Vietnam. He dropped the tariffs 26% randomly out of nowhere right after the Vietnamese government approved a $1.5 billion golf course of his. That happened. And we're not even talking about it. How about the $2 billion went into world financial literacy, into the Witkoff family, in the Trump family's pocket? And you know what in return the UAE got for that $2 billion contribution in tithing? They got some high-valued computer chips. National security was sacrificed in the name of their personal portfolio. That's happening in real time on our watch. We have got to call this out. We have got to fight fire with fire. It's all on the line, and we need to draw that line. And as we draw the line, yes, let's also start drawing that circle where all of us can be repairers of the breach in the spirit of Isaiah as we move from resistance to renewal. And we'll get there. We will get there, and it starts again with Speaker Jeffries this November.
Amen to that. And Governor, I want to put a bow on what you just said and specifically bring some focus here in South Carolina and for those of you watching online in your states as well. Put my former state party and national party chair hat back on. There's a wave building in this midterm election. And if you're a student of history, you see the pendulum swings back and forth. I was the executive director of the House Dem Caucus in 2006 when Nancy Pelosi was the leader, Jim Clyburn was the caucus chair. And the things that we saw in '06 are the same things that we are seeing right now. And in 2006, a wave built that swept Nancy Pelosi into the speakership, made Jim Clyburn the House Majority Whip, and even took back the United States Senate. And that set up the 2008 race where we got Barack Obama elected as President of the United States. I just wrote a piece that I believe that 2026 is an echo of 2006. Folks, we take back the House, we take back the Senate, we set up for winning back the White House in 2028. But we need your help. We need your help. So I would say this. There should not be one seat in South Carolina where we have a Republican running that there is not a Democrat on the ballot.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have just done it in North Carolina. They just did it in Texas. Now it is on us, South Carolina, to do the same. So this is what I'm saying to all of you. If you see that there's an open seat, you need to find somebody to run, or guess what? As my wife told me when I was complaining about Lindsey Graham, she said, well, aren't you somebody? That means if you don't find somebody to run, then you know what? We will pay your filing fee so that you can run. We need you to run. Don't leave one seat open, folks. Don't leave one seat open.
Once a chair, always a chair. I appreciate this. Just, Jamie, let me amplify a little bit. I do think it's so similar. It's interesting how the contours are playing very similar to 2004. We got shellacked.
Yes.
2004, we lost the Electoral vote college, and we lost the popular vote. In 2005, like 2025,
yes,
there was a lot of community building. Democracy Alliance, Media Matters, Center for American Progress. People started to self-organize, come together, cross their difference. Instead of hand-wringing, they started to step up and step in, started ringing doorbells. Nancy Pelosi, as you say, becomes Speaker of the House, take back the Senate, and 2 years later, historic election. Yes, historic for many reasons, but historic in this sense. For the first time since 1964, the President of the United States got 53% of the vote, got more than 50% of the vote in this landslide election by the name of Barack Obama. The contours and tenets are so similar to what's going on today. But again, it's the hard work. You're not bystanders in this. You have agency. I say this all the time. The future is not something to experience. It's something to manifest. It's decisions, not conditions, that determine our fate and future. And so it's up to all of us to make that so. And I appreciate the spirit, Mr. Chair, that you bring to this about how we have a responsibility. We are leaders, all of us. You don't have to be something to do something. You know, I had such a privilege, and you know him well, and I could have spent 20 hours with Ambassador Young the other day. In Georgia, and talking about Dr. King, and he was talking about sort of the tenets of the nonviolent movement, and I didn't fully absorb how comprehensive the engagement was with Gandhi, and how those examples were brought to the movement. And it was so interesting as I left, and I talked about this a little bit last night in Atlanta, but that you know, King never served a day in elected office. We're not celebrating President Martin Luther King Day. I don't recall Prime Minister Gandhi. But these are two of the most transformative figures in world history because they had something much more significant and powerful than Donald Trump has. They both had moral authority. And this is important. Donald Trump has plenty of formal authority. The more he uses it, the less he has of it. The more we use our moral authority, the more abundant it becomes. All of us have the capacity to not only flow with the forces of life, to be fully expressive, but to lead by using and utilizing our moral authority. And so we are the repairers of the breach. And all of us have a role to play. I appreciate in the spirit of what Jamie is promoting.
So a few more questions, Governor, and then I know we wrap. I don't see anybody giving me the cut yet, but I'm looking.
Some of you have babysitters, and
yes, I know.
I got 4 kids, and trust me, Jesus. We could talk about childcare.
Yes. Yes, we definitely need to do something about childcare. And as somebody with 2 kids, I can tell you childcare is expensive. And there's some parents who are spending, if you're in a 2-parent household, one income is just going towards childcare alone. And so that's something that we definitely need to address. But you got a lot of fans in here, a lot of supporters.
Thank you. Like I said, you haven't read the book yet. Thank you.
But they're also within our party, we got the yin and the yang. We got folks who are critics. And so critic says, yes, Gavin, he debates Republicans, but he also invites them on his podcast.
Yeah, I get it.
And so some Democrats worry that platforming certain voices risks normalizing those extreme voices. What's your theory on, you set the record straight, what's your theory on what you're trying to do in terms of that?
Well, I completely respect that critique. And the good news is no one has to tune in. And the irony in the beginning of that critique was who was platforming whom? I didn't have one download, one follower. I had never done a podcast interview in my life. And it was interesting, the folks that wanted to come on came on from the other side of the political aisle. And I've long believed, success leaves clues. There's power in emulation, meaning what are the tenets? I think it's right to why did Donald Trump win and win again? Why did he win all those 7 states? Why did he get the popular vote? Why have young men moved away from our party? What is the Democratic Party doing to get young men back? Are we organizing as well as we should? And that was my sense. And so I went out to understand that. Again, seek first to understand before you understood. And here's why. Maybe it's all Clintonian phrase, but divorce is not an option. We have to define the terms of our future together. I don't want to talk down to people or past people because I don't like being talked down to. And I talk a little bit about that as a kid that was struggling to read and write and how people sort of mock you and make fun of you. And it's shaped. My mom worked for Aid to Adoption of Special Kids, the DeBolt family, kids with developmental and intellectual disabilities. When you mock people with disabilities, you other people. That's why I did that debate with Ron DeSantis. What he was doing. Talk about rewriting history, censoring historical facts, rewriting social studies books by taking out the race of Rosa Parks. That happened in Florida until you stopped it, but it happened in Florida. The gag rules in the classroom, not just classrooms, but also the boardroom. Going after CRT, DEI, ESG, what do they have in common? And how they were shape-shifting the conversation, and we were constantly on our heels. So this notion of trying to understand so that we can more successfully compete and succeed is at the core of who I am. The show's called This is Gavin Newsom because that's who I am. Just because I don't want to hear them, I'm tuning them out, doesn't mean they go away. I watch Fox News, so you don't have to. And that's why I did that. I debated 3 people, really. I debated the network, Sean Hannity, and DeSantis with that debate. But I was willing to do it. And I just, again, back to iteration, increase the number of tries, try to do things differently, see what works. And if I have the arrows in the back, fine, then someone can step over me and go further. But I'm just willing, and that doesn't make me better. Maybe naive, maybe critical, and say, but it's who I am. And I just think it's important at this moment because it's all on the line and we can't continue to do what we've done. We can't. We have to do things differently. And I fundamentally believe this, and this is something Clinton also said years ago when we got shellacked in one of the midterms. Given the choice, he said, given the choice, the American people will always support strong and wrong versus weak and right.
Yeah.
We need to be stronger as a party, more disciplined, more aggressive, go on the offensive, define the terms of the engagement. We've got to win the narrative. It's about attention. So that's what I'm also trying to achieve.
Thank you, Governor. You're in South Carolina, and South Carolina is a special place. We have some great people.
I was in Charleston. You want special place. I told no one from California is allowed to visit it because they will all leave. Wow, you ain't kidding.
It is a special place. And, just a few facts on South Carolina. Some of our folks, again, who are watching at home in other parts of the country may not know. And I'm saying this from the perspective as a young black man, not as young as I used to be, here in South Carolina. But 40% of enslaved folks came to this country through the port of Charleston. National Geographic says that if you surveyed most Black Americans, 90% of them can find one ancestor and trace them back here to South Carolina. Before Rosa Parks took a seat, Sarah Mae Fleming did in Columbia. Brown versus Board, well, the first seminal case of Brown versus Board was here in Clarendon County, Briggs versus Elliott.
Where I just was.
This is a special place. South Carolina has been the first in the South in terms of the Democratic presidential primary process, and just recently was the first in the nation. When you look at the Democratic primary here in 2028 for the next presidential, which we would love to know whether or not you were interested in stepping up in. But when you look at...
Read the book.
When you look at South Carolina's place, the majority of the folks who may vote in that presidential primary will probably be of African American descent. I love it. What is your message for the Black electorate that makes up the primary vote here in South Carolina? What have you been hearing from them in your visits to the Palmetto State?
I know you're setting me up to, you can go to the DNC in a month or two to make the case for the first primary. I love coming back here, and I've been here wearing my old hat. I came out here when I was a county supervisor and mayor for different reasons, and then had the privilege of being here as a surrogate for
Joe Biden.
For Joe Biden. Right there, the day of the primary, the last primary, and here in the summer, not just, and it really is a remarkable, beautiful, and special place, and wonderful history. And we were in Manning today, and we were talking a little bit about Briggs. And by the way, just as an aside, my desk in the governor's office is Earl Warren's desk. Brown versus Board of Education, governor of California, Earl Warren. People forget that sometimes. And so I'm reminded in so many ways of that history, and very familiar with Briggs in relationship to that history as one of the 5 or so cases that was consolidated. And so, look, you matter, and we need to care more. We don't have a huge Black population in California, but that doesn't mean that I'm not connected to the cause of racial justice, social justice, economic justice. I've said this so many times, this administration wants to bring us back to a pre-1960s world. Mm-hmm. They want to put America in reverse. And you're seeing that across the board. Obviously, we saw that with Dobbs and women's rights, but you're seeing that with LGBTQ rights, you're seeing that with voting rights and civil rights. I talk about my love for Bobby Kennedy, but it's really a love for everything the 60s represented. The vernacular of the 60s, the spirit of the 60s. Just triumph and tragedy. Sarge Shriver, what he represented to that moment, the Kennedy we all forgot about, who created VISTA, Legal Aid to the Poor, that fought that war on poverty when we actually reduced poverty in this country, that started, he started Peace Corps, with his wife, created the Special Olympics. We talk about Dr. King and what he represented. I talked about my relationship to the moment where we started marrying same-sex couples. My first press conference, I literally quoted from letters in Birmingham jail. It's always the right time to do the right thing. And so inspired by the energy and daring of the civil rights movement and what it represented, not just the Black community, but for all of us. And that spirit of King, that we're all bound together by a web of mutuality. And so it's imbued in those engagements and the relationships that I've formed out here with you, with the people I've met in communities large and small in this state. But I've intentionally spent more time in rural parts of this state, in the smallest and reddest parts of this state, because the Democratic Party needs to do more of that.
Yes.
And that, more than anything else, that's what I've heard in my time out here in South Carolina.
So before we close, on my podcast every week, every Tuesday, at our table, we give out an award. and we call it...
You want a peace prize tonight, sir? What do you want? Wow, Jamie. Jesus, you're not... Trump's not the only one, huh?
We give out an award. And since we have kids in the room, it's called the Sit Your Butt Down Award, but really it's another word. Sit Your Donkey Down Award. Who in public life right now most deserves to sit their A down and reflect?
It's slow pitch. The problem is I got a lot. I'm looking at the board right now. It's
there's a lot.
A lot of names, a lot of faces that are appearing. But I'll tell you, the dark heart of the MAGA movement, Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller, you are this week's recipient of the Sit Your A Down Award. Last question. If your mom was watching tonight, which I know she is, what would she tell you to remember?
I love that. You know, I think for her, she was always striving for a deeper connection with her family. Not just her father, took his own life, but her kids, her ex-husband. I'm absolutely sure of this. She never got a chance to meet any of my kids. I've got 4 extraordinary kids. Dutchie was the surprise. By the way, Dutch, boy, did he surprise us in another way. He was sitting there at my inaugural, and I kind of fibbed a little bit. I said I don't ever read speeches with one exception, and that is in a teleprompter when I'm forced to. And so on my inaugural as governor, I'm there reading a speech. I spent 20 hours for this 10-minute speech. And I'm just fixed to the words because if I miss them, humiliation. Front row of my family, little Dutchie with his pacifier and his blanket. And he just darts up on stage, right in the middle of the speech. My wife tries to grab him, looks around, everyone's staring, kind of panics. He kind of runs away, zigzags, and then runs right up to my leg and literally is looking up. And I'm trying not to look down because I'm not going to ever get it back to the script. It is not going well. And eventually you do it, and
yes,
right? You just pick him up, and he puts his head right in my thing. You can go online and see this. And I ended up giving my speech with my son in my arms the whole time. And no one remembers a damn word I say. And every speech they say, I want that speech you did at the inaugural. But that's the answer. That's what my mom would tell me. Yeah. Remember that moment. Remember what it's all about. Take seriously who you dedicated this for. It was dedicated to Montana, dedicated to Hunter, Brooklyn, and Dutch. And may they, I said, continue the story. And that's the journey I've been on, this journey of discovery, this journey of love and redemption, of renewal, dare I say. And that's the journey she would want me always to come back to be a great father and to be a great husband.
Governor Gavin Newsom, thank you so much for sharing yourself at our table.
Thank you guys.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out.